We live in the most advanced age in human history, yet so many of us feel mentally overwhelmed. We have unlimited information in our pockets. We can communicate instantly across continents. We have convenience, speed, and constant stimulation, and yet anxiety is common. Distraction is constant. Clarity feels rare. 2,000 years ago, there were no smartphones, no social media, no 24-hour news cycle, but there were wars, political chaos, betrayal, illness, and uncertainty. And in the middle of that instability, thinkers like Marcus Aurelius, Confucius, Gautama Buddha, Epicurus, and Socrates were asking a simple question. How should a human being think in order to live well? They weren't chasing productivity hacks. They weren't trying to go viral. They were trying to understand the mind. What makes us suffer? What makes us peaceful? What makes a life meaningful? What's fascinating is that their answers feel surprisingly modern. They spoke about emotional control, attention, gratitude, character, humility, and critical thinking. In other words, the very skills most people struggle with today. This isn't about memorizing quotes from ancient books. It's about adopting mental frameworks that still work. In the next few minutes, we'll explore 5 ancient philosophies that can quietly rewire the way you think, not by overwhelming you with theory, but by offering practical shifts in perspective. And by the end, you may realize that progress isn't always about learning something new. Sometimes it's about remembering something timeless. Because when you change the way you think, you change the way you experience everything. Stress feels different, failure feels different. Even success feels different. The external world may stay the same, but your internal response transforms. And that internal shift is where real freedom begins. That is the quiet power of ancient wisdom. It still works today. Imagine this. You wake up, grab your phone, and before you even get out of bed, you see bad news. The market is down. Someone unfollowed you. There's a negative comment on something you posted. Maybe your boss emailed you at 6:12 a.m. with, "We need to talk." Your heart rate goes up instantly. Nothing has actually happened yet, but your mind is already spiraling. This is exactly where Stoicism becomes practical. The core idea is simple. You cannot control events, but you can control your interpretation of them. You cannot control the algorithm. You cannot control your boss's tone. You cannot control what strangers type behind a screen, but you can control how you respond. Let's take the negative comment example. Someone writes, "This is terrible advice." Your first instinct might be anger or embarrassment. You start defending yourself in your head. Maybe you even type a long reply. A stoic pause changes everything. Instead of reacting, you ask, "Is this within my control?" Their opinion is not. My response is, then you ask, "Is there something useful here?" If yes, improve. If not, move on. That single mental shift saves you hours of emotional drain. Or consider something bigger. You apply for a job you really want. You prepare. You show up confident. A week later, you get rejected. You cannot control their decision, but you can control whether you grow bitter or better. Stoicism doesn't mean pretending you don't care. It means accepting reality quickly so you can redirect your energy. Instead of replaying the rejection, you ask, "What can I improve? What's my next move?" The same applies to traffic, delays, economic downturns, even other people's moods. The Stoic question stays the same. What part of this is mine to handle? When you focus only on what's yours, something powerful happens. Your emotional life becomes more stable. You stop riding every external wave. You become anchored. In a digital age designed to provoke reaction, Stoicism trains response. It teaches you that peace is not found by controlling the world. It's found by mastering your perspective. And once you start practicing that daily, you realize something surprising. Most of what disturbs you was never truly in your control to begin with, and most of your strength was always within reach. The more you practice this separation, the faster you recover from setbacks. You begin to notice triggers before they take over. You catch the impulse to argue online. You feel the rise of frustration in a meeting and choose composure instead. That space between stimulus and response becomes your advantage. Over months and years, that discipline compounds. People start to describe you as steady, reliable, hard to shake. Not because life stopped testing you, but because you stopped giving every situation permission to control your mood. That is modern Stoicism. Quiet, practical, and deeply empowering. Now, let's break down Buddha's philosophy in the simplest way possible. At its core, it's about understanding suffering and learning how to live peacefully, wisely, and without unnecessary mental pain. First, life includes suffering. Problems are not a mistake. They are part of being human. Everyone experiences sadness, stress, loss, disappointment, and fear. It doesn't matter how rich, successful, or famous someone is. No one escapes it. Think about today. You want success, you want money, you want someone's love or approval. When you don't get it, you suffer. That's normal. Buddha's point was not to deny suffering, but to understand it. Second, the main cause of suffering is attachment. We suffer not just because things happen, but because we expect them to happen a certain way. We want life to follow our plan. We want people to act how we want. We want results on our timeline. For example, you post something online, you expect 1,000 likes. You get 100, you feel disappointed. The pain didn't come from the post itself, it came from your expectation of 1,000 likes. Third, suffering can end when you learn to control your mind. Buddha taught that pain is natural, but mental suffering grows from how we think about pain. If you control your desires, accept reality, and stop depending on outside approval for happiness, you become calmer and stronger inside. If you stop needing everyone to agree with you, criticism loses its power. If you stop tying your worth to outcomes, failure feels like feedback instead of proof that you are not enough. Fourth, the solution is awareness and balance. Control your thoughts, avoid extremes. Don't live in obsession, but don't live in laziness either. Stay present, pay attention to your actions. This is called the middle path. It means living with discipline and balance, not chasing every desire, and not running away from responsibility. Finally, the ultimate goal is inner peace. This is called nirvana. It doesn't mean the world becomes perfect, it means your mind becomes steady. No constant fear, no emotional dependence, no endless chasing for validation. Here's a simple example. Two people lose money. One keeps thinking, why me? This is unfair. The other says, it happened, I'll rebuild. The event is the same. The mind is different, and that difference changes everything. Now, let's move to another powerful philosophy, the teachings of Confucius. While Stoicism focuses on inner control and Buddhism focuses on letting go, Confucian philosophy is about how you live with other people. It asks a simple question: how do you build a stable and meaningful life in a chaotic world? Confucius believed that personal peace starts with personal responsibility. Before you try to fix society, fix your character. Before you demand respect, become respectable. He taught that your habits shape your character, and your character shapes your destiny. One of his core ideas was self-discipline, not in a harsh way, but in a steady way. The way you speak, the way you treat your parents, your friends, your co-workers, even strangers, all of it matters. Small daily actions build your reputation over time. In today's world, it's easy to focus on image, followers, status, appearances, but Confucius would argue that real influence comes from integrity, from doing the right thing even when no one is watching. He also emphasized respect and relationships. He believed strong families create strong communities, and strong communities create stable nations. That may sound big, but it starts small. Do you keep your word? Do you show up when you say you will? Do you treat people with fairness? These questions are simple, but they are powerful. Another key idea is lifelong learning. Confucius believed growth never stops. You don't reach a point where you arrive, you improve your behavior, your thinking, and your understanding every day. Imagine applying this today. Instead of chasing quick success, you focus on becoming reliable. Instead of reacting emotionally in conflict, you respond with patience and respect. Instead of blaming others for your problems, you ask, what can I improve? This philosophy builds quiet strength. It doesn't promise instant happiness. It builds long-term stability. When your character is solid, your decisions become clearer. When your values are strong, you are less influenced by trends and pressure. Confucius teaches that a meaningful life is not built through dramatic moments. It is built through consistent discipline, respect, and self-improvement. And over time, that steady effort becomes something powerful. It becomes trust, it becomes influence, it becomes a life you can be proud of. Socrates and the power of questioning. Socrates believed one main thing. Most people think they know the truth, but they don't really question it. His idea was powerful and easy to understand. Real wisdom starts when you admit you don't know everything. Instead of trying to sound smart, Socrates asked questions. What is success? What is justice? What is a good person? When someone gave an answer, he didn't argue. He asked another question and another. Slowly, people realized their ideas were not as clear as they thought. He wasn't trying to embarrass anyone. He was trying to make people think more deeply. Now think about today. People argue online every day. Everyone has strong opinions. But how often do we stop and ask, why do I believe this? Or what if I'm wrong? That's the Socratic mindset. Before reacting, pause and ask, is this true? How do I know? Am I assuming something? For example, someone criticizes you. Your first reaction might be anger, but Socrates would ask, is what they said true? If yes, can I improve? If no, why let it control me? That simple questioning creates clarity. Socrates also said something famous. The unexamined life is not worth living. He meant that if you never reflect on your choices, your habits, and your values, you live on autopilot. Are you chasing what you truly want, or what everyone else says you should want? Socrates believed that thinking deeply about your life makes you stronger and wiser. He even chose to die rather than give up his beliefs. That shows how much he valued truth and integrity. In simple terms, Socrates teaches this: don't just follow opinions. Don't just defend your ego. Question your thoughts. Test your beliefs. Because when you learn to question clearly, you start to think clearly. And when you think clearly, you live more intentionally. That's the power of Socrates. Socrates was sentenced to death in Athens because he was accused of corrupting the youth and not believing in the city's gods. But the deeper reason was that he challenged powerful people by constantly questioning their beliefs and exposing weak thinking. His method made leaders uncomfortable, especially because young people began thinking for themselves instead of blindly following authority. At his trial, Socrates had the chance to apologize or promise to stop teaching, which could have saved his life, but he refused because he believed seeking truth was his duty. He was sentenced to drink hemlock poison. Even when his friends offered to help him escape, he chose to stay, saying that running away would go against his principles. He calmly accepted his fate, drank the poison, and died surrounded by his students, choosing integrity and truth over comfort and survival. Epicurus and the art of simple happiness. Now, let's talk about Epicurus, and he might surprise you today. When people hear his name, they think it means pleasure, luxury, or living big, but that's not what he taught. Epicurus believed the goal of life is happiness, but not the loud, flashy kind. Not endless parties, not constant excitement. He believed real happiness is simple. His core idea was this: most people suffer because they chase the wrong pleasures. We think more money, more status, more attention will finally make us feel satisfied. But the more we chase, the more anxious we become. Epicurus divided desires into 3 types. 1. Natural and necessary. Food, shelter, friendship. 2. Natural but unnecessary. Luxury, fancy food, comfort upgrades. 3. Vain desires, fame, power, endless wealth. He said focus on the first, be careful with the second. Avoid the third. For example, you need food. That's natural and necessary, but you don't need the most expensive restaurant every night. And you definitely don't need millions of followers to survive. Epicurus believed friendship was one of the greatest sources of happiness. Not fame, not power, simple connection. He also taught that fear ruins peace, especially fear of death and fear of the future. He argued that worrying about things you cannot control only steals the present moment. His idea of pleasure was not excitement, it was peace, a calm mind, a healthy body, a simple life without unnecessary drama. In today's world, this is powerful. We are constantly told to want more, achieve more, display more. Epicurus would say, slow down. What do you actually need to feel okay? What desires are making your life heavier instead of lighter? Imagine lowering your expectations for luxury but raising your appreciation for simple things: a quiet evening, a good conversation, a basic meal, a stress-free day. That's not settling. That's freedom. Epicurus teaches that happiness is not about having everything. It's about realizing how little you truly need. And when you understand that, life becomes lighter.